In the heart of the vast African savanna lived a little lion cub named Leo. Unlike the other cubs, Leo was, well, a bit of a scaredy-cat. The rustle of the tall grass made him jump. The shadow of a passing bird sent him scurrying behind his mother, and the mighty roar of his father, the king of the pride, made his tiny whiskers tremble. The other cubs would playfully pounce and practice their roars, their little growls echoing with future greatness. But Leo preferred the quiet safety of the den, watching the world from a distance. One afternoon, his father, King Mufasa, kidding, let's call him King Thabasat, down beside him. His deep, rumbling voice was gentle. "Leo," he said, "a king isn't born without fear. A true king learns to face it." Leo looked down at his paws, not feeling very kingly at all. "But Papa," he whispered, "my roar is just a squeak, and my heart feels like a scared little mouse." Thabo nuzzled him. "Your roar will grow, little one, but your courage, that grows right here," he said, tapping Leo's chest with his massive nose. "It grows every time you choose to take one more step, even when you're afraid." Days turned into weeks. Leo tried to be braver. He'd joined the other cubs, though he always stayed on the edge of the group. He'd try to roar, but it would come out as a cough. The other animals would sometimes chuckle. A cheeky meerkat named Mika would often scamper up and say, still squeaking, "Leo, a butterfly's sneeze is louder than that." Leo's cheeks would flush, and he'd retreat to the den, the laughter ringing in his ears. He felt like a failure, a tiny, fuzzy disappointment. He wondered if he'd ever be the lion he was supposed to be. One scorching hot day, the savannah was quieter than usual. The air was thick and still. Leo was near the watering hole with his best friend, a young zebra foal named Zola. Zola, unlike Leo, was fearless and always curious. While Leo nervously sipped water, Zola was busy chasing a colorful beetle, her black and white stripes a blur of excitement. "Be careful, Zola," Leo called out, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't wander too far." Zola just laughed, her happy neigh echoing back. "Don't worry, Leo, it's just a beetle." Suddenly, a new sound cut through the silence. A low, sinister chuckle, hidden in the tall, dry grass. A pair of hungry hyenas were watching Zola. Their eyes gleamed with malice. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs. This was his worst nightmare. He was frozen, every instinct screaming at him to run and hide. He saw the hyenas begin to creep forward, their bodies low to the ground, inching closer and closer to the unsuspecting foal. Zola was still playfully stomping, completely unaware of the danger. Leo wanted to shout, to roar, to call for his father, but his throat was tight with fear. The hyenas were getting closer. He could see their sharp teeth. He looked at Zola, his friend, so full of life and joy. Then he remembered his father's words. "Courage grows every time you choose to take one more step, even when you're afraid." He had to do something. He couldn't just watch. Hiding wouldn't save Zola. Running wouldn't save her. Taking a deep, shaky breath, Leo did the only thing he could think of. He stepped out from behind the rock he was hiding behind. He stood as tall as his little body would allow, planted his paws firmly on the ground, and puffed out his chest. He thought of his father, of the pride of his friend Zola. He gathered all the air in his tiny lungs, every ounce of fear, every bit of love for his friend, and let it all out. It wasn't a squeak, it wasn't a cough. A surprisingly loud and fierce roar erupted from his small frame. It wasn't as mighty as his father's, not yet, but it was sharp, defiant, and full of a courage he never knew he possessed. The sound sliced through the savannah's silence. The hyenas, startled by the unexpected challenge, stopped dead in their tracks. They looked over and saw the little lion cub standing his ground, his eyes blazing. Zola whipped her head around, her eyes wide with shock. The hyenas exchanged a confused glance. They were expecting a scared little cub, an easy target's friend. They weren't expecting a defender. They snarled, baring their teeth, trying to intimidate him. But Leo didn't back down. He roared again, this time a little stronger, a little louder. He was still terrified. His legs were shaking so hard he thought he might fall over. But he stood his ground, a tiny, furry wall between his friend and danger. The standoff didn't last long. The hyenas, being cowards at heart, weren't prepared for a fight, no matter how small the opponent. They preferred easy meals. With a frustrated yelp and a final hateful glare, they turned and slunk back into the tall grass, disappearing as quickly as they had appeared. The danger was gone. Leo stood there, panting, his heart still racing, but for a different reason now. It was racing with adrenaline and pride. Zola galloped over to him, nuzzling him gratefully. "Leo, you saved me. You were so brave. I heard you roar." Leo looked at his friend, a slow smile spreading across his face. He felt different, taller, stronger. Just then, a deep, familiar roar echoed across the plains. King Thabo and the rest of the pride had heard Leo's cry and were rushing to the scene. They arrived to find Leo standing protectively beside Zola, looking not like a scared little cub, but like a future king. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, the entire savannah buzzed with the story of the brave little lion. The meerkats chattered about it, the giraffes gossiped over the treetops, and even the grumpy old rhinos gave a nod of respect. Leo sat beside his father, watching the stars begin to prick the twilight sky. He wasn't the biggest lion, or the strongest, not yet. But he had learned the most important lesson of all. King Thabo put a heavy paw on his son's shoulder. "I heard your roar today, Leo," he rumbled, his voice filled with pride. It was the roar of a king. Leo looked up at his father, his eyes shining. He finally understood. Courage wasn't about not being afraid. It was about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. From that day on, Leo was still sometimes scared, but he never let fear stop him again. His roar grew stronger every day, echoing across the savannah, the sound of a small lion with a very big heart. And whenever any young animal felt afraid, they would remember the story of Leo, the brave little lion who found his roar.